Morning. I got an early morning message from someone I know at Aston Martin, Emma at Aston Martin Pangbourne, and she said I can come down to Millbrook today to test a few of their cars. So I said, why not? She said we have to be there at 9:30, and I read the message at 7, and I live nowhere near Millbrook. So my wife and I have headed out. We got up early, and we decided to take the Aventador SVJ today. So I said, what greater experience than to explain how it is using an SVJ in M25 traffic. So yeah, currently we're in M25 traffic as I predicted we would be. I got my SVJ back 2 weeks ago after it was away for 3 months because it needed a part that was on back order because of everything that's gone on in the world. The car's back. I was driving a Hurricane at the time, and this is a completely different experience. So the Aventador SVJ is the uprated version of the Aventador, 770 CS, so that's about 760 horsepower. Over the Aventador S, it also has titanium valve springs and a few other engine bits and bobs, as well as the ALA system, the new Lamborghini aerodynamic system, to improve the performance of the car. It doesn't do much to use the usability on a daily basis, but that was something Lamborghini was never going to do.
Okay.
So the SVJ is a comfortable car to an extent. It's not a grand tourer by any means of the word. The front luggage space is large, but large enough for maybe 2 carry-on luggage boxes at a squeeze. Also, the seats are quite hard compared to the Hurricane E valves driving there. There's a lot of padding in the seat that it just doesn't do anything. Whereas the Hurricane E valve seemed to be a softer and thinner seat, which was nicer. Also, one thing about this car that I've always wanted to point out, but I've never had the opportunity to, is that if you listen carefully, there's a slight whistle that comes from the ALA system. So when it opens the vents at the front of the car, it channels air over. So then when it's channeling the air from underneath the car over the car, there's a certain tone that you start to get that almost sounds like a dog whistle to an extent. And it can be quite like alarming the first few times you hear it, but as soon as I realized what it was, then I was just like, oh, okay, whatever. But as I'm close to this car in front and I'm drafting it to an extent, there's not as much air traveling over the car, so you can't hear the sound as much. But as soon as I get into some clear air, you'll hear like a sound, which is interesting. At least you know the ALA system's working, and you also have a display in front of you that lets you know the ALA system's working, and it tells you what exactly it's doing. As we continue our journey, another thing I want to point out about the SVJ is the inertia of the engine. I mean, this engine was designed and developed in about 2009 for the 2011 release of this car, and it's a very old school and heavy block. It's mated to, again, that robotized automated manual gearbox, so it is clunky. I mean, they have updated the engine as they've gone on, but one thing you notice is that it doesn't rev as freely as you would expect it to, and that's just because it's a very, very, very heavy unit. Speaking of weight, the Aventador SVJ, although it is a performance and it is the lightest iteration of the Aventador, it is still quite a heavy car, and it's very difficult to get the exact figures. Lamborghini state the dry figures of the car, which means with no oil, no fuel, no water, no nothing. So I actually don't know what the weight is without getting on a set of scales, but I'm predicting it's probably somewhere close to 1,700 kg. At least, I would say. It doesn't feel as heavy, especially with the 4-wheel steering system that they introduced in the Aventador S and then brought over to the SVJ. And it is quite nimble when you're when you're giving it, when you're on it. But when you're cruising on the motorway and around town, you really, really feel the weight, and it starts to emphasize itself the more relaxed your driving style is. But yeah, we're come out of the traffic now, so we're going to continue our journey on the M25, the worst road in the UK. But I'll keep you updated. The journey we have today is about 70 miles. We left with a full tank, and that was about 250 miles. I'm just under full now. The V12 in this car is very thirsty. It does have cylinder deactivation. However, I tend not to use it just because it's a big, hefty, old school V12 engine, and I'm not sure if cylinder activation is something that I want to be using on a regular basis. Also, firing the cylinders up and shutting them down in traffic like this, it's too frequent for my liking, and I think it'll be too frequent for anyone else's liking. I mean, in something like a Mercedes, I wouldn't mind, or like an G-Wagon, it's fine, because I know that car has been tested throughout the years in many cars. They have many of those G63 4.4 or 4-litre turbo engines on the road, the AMG ones, whereas this is a bit more special, it's a bit more rare, so I don't know how much I can trust the engineering. But it looks like we're going to be in traffic a majority of the way. The car in traffic, for the passenger, it isn't that bad. I think it's not that bad in traffic, is it?
No, it's alright.
But for me, I'm constantly thinking, and there's a few reasons for that. So, as you know, the Aventador is super wide. Like, it's a very wide car. So I have to make sure that I'm staying very close to the right lane when I'm in the fast lane, and to stay close to the right side. And the funny thing, and it's like first world problems, is a lot of people tend to look at the car whilst you're driving, and people don't realize that where they look, they drive to. So you get a lot of people edging into your lane because they're looking at the car. So you just have to be really aware about that. Another thing is the single clutch automated robotized manual gearbox that Lamborghini insist on still putting in this car for a number of logistical reasons. It's a very finicky gearbox in the best of scenarios, and in traffic it's not the best of scenarios. So what that means is that every time you stop the car, you have to put the gearbox into neutral so you don't burn out the clutch. And then when you're ready to pull off, first give it throttle. But Lamborghini themselves say don't edge the car, because the car's not designed to behave in that way, and the gearbox isn't designed to be robust in those kinds of situations. So what they say is, when you know you're going to go forward, give the throttle. Don't know half-heartedness. So it means that you just have to be quite predictive about what the car in front is going to do, and you have to be switched on all the time about what you're going to do. Also, the inboard suspension give a really, really strange sensation when you're driving, and it's something that you'll notice if you come out of a sports car with regular suspension, or a supercar with regular suspension. So the sensation of the vibration of the road is it's not bad, but it's very different, and it takes like a little while to get used to. But once you do, you completely forget. Currently, I'm running the car in Ego mode using Lamborghini's mode switch system. So my Ego mode, let me show you what it consists of. So my Ego mode, my powertrain is in sport, my steering wheel is in sport because I prefer the steering wheel heavier, and my suspension is in Strada, which means street. So that's the softest suspension setting. And that means that when I'm cruising and when I'm going on a long distance journey, the car can eat up the bumps and I can just chill and relax. Sometimes I do put the car in Strada, but in Strada mode, despite if you have start-stop on, the engine will still try and do cylinder deactivation. So I try to avoid Strada mode completely. But yeah, we're on our way to Millbrook. I'm not entirely sure if I'll be able to film. When the road opens up on the motorway, I will give you some revs and I'll show you what it means to drive an Aventador SVJ. I thought we'd be out of the traffic, but we're just into more traffic. It is the morning. I do not know what I expected. That's a gorgeous M4, by the way. But, oh, see that there? That is when you know there's going to be a speed camera on the motorway. And there's the speed camera. So, I'm not sure if you saw that. On the side of the road is yellow. So when you see the two CCTV looking cameras before a gantry, you have time to slow down in between there. But if you do see those two CCTV cameras, there is a speed camera, and if you're going above 70 miles an hour on the M25 anyway, well, 70, 10% plus 2, if you're doing like 80, it will flash you, and that's guaranteed. So there's a little Tommy tip. So I'm not sure if the camera picked it up, but when you change gear in Corsa mode, you get a right kick in the back. The gearbox actually opens and closes in what I believe is 50 milliseconds. It might be less. So it was faster than the dual clutches of that time, and it gives you a real bang. But it's such a unique sensation that when Lamborghini eventually introduced their dual clutch V12 to replace the Aventador, it's going to be a shame because I don't think it will have the same emotion and character that this does. But God, it will make driving traffic way easier.
Okay.
So on country roads, the car, it can be athletic, it rides low so it can bottom out, but looks like that's all the fun we're gonna get to have. This journey I've done about 40 miles and half my tank is gone, just for reference. But yes, I'll continue behind Oil NRG Fueling Company. Bumps in the road, but there weren't. So the brakes don't feel great in this car, but they do grip up when you need them to. And you find yourself shifting a lot more than you're supposed to just because of the sound of the V12. Bumpy. In a Hurricane Evo, you could give it a lot more beats than I'm giving this. And obviously, I don't know the road, and this looks like a place where a lot of people bottom out. Yeah, there's some quick Aventador SVJs. Road contents, it's kind of a nightmare sometimes because the roads are so narrow in this country. You find yourself going through to Sport and then Corsa just so you can soften the suspension. I mean, stiff suspension makes the car very bouncy, but it also makes it a bit more predictable than when the suspension's soft.
It's so quite loud though, it's not really loud.
As you heard my wife saying I need to speak a bit louder, there's a lot of lateral grip in this car, and I mean a lot.
Tommy is so bouncy, I can't even keep it. I can't keep it.
But yeah, Aventador SVJ, it can do it. It won't feel great, but it can do it. I mean, if you want to be taking on road trips, you probably want something that is a bit more British road friendly. Even a Hurricane you could throw about a lot more than this just because of the size and the weight. But this is like an experience like no other. It genuinely feels like you're in a race car. Not because it has the most grip or not because it's the lightest car, but just because it's so violent and so aggressive. It reminds me of the footage you used to see of Formula 1 cars back in the day, and the head bopping down, up and down every time they change gear. You get such a similar sensation, and it's something that I'm gonna miss when they finally choose to replace this car. So Millbrook, in a sense, is like the UK's Nürburgring. That's what it feels like to me. So you have people living here, and it's like a quintessentially, there's the Gordon Murray T50 behind us. So I was driving fast, but he must have been driving really fast because I left him a while ago. But yeah, I think it's called the T50, I'm not sure, but two V12s next to each other. When do you ever see that? We're heading to Millbrook now. Yep, the UK's Nürburgring. You tend to see a lot of cars that you don't often see. And a lot of prototype cars come in here. So yeah, it should be quite an occasion, quite an event. I need to raise.
Then turn Let me see if I can try and film.
So I'm raising up my front nose lift, as you can see here, just so I can clear some of these steeper bumps. It's really annoying that they put these bumps here because there will be cars like this going over, but I guess a lot of people get excited when entering and leaving Millbrook and then they just end up speeding, and that's not what you want in such a public area. So we're at Millbrook now. Why am I wearing my glasses? Forgot to take them off. We're at Millbrook now. We're heading in. We're actually a bit late. We have to sign in. Before you could drive in, but today you can't. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'll be able to film, so I'm gonna try and hide my phone. Bye. So we're in Oxford now. We've come out from Millbrook, obviously. We weren't allowed to film. They made us put stickers on our phones, and there was more stickers here, but I've removed them. And that's because there's a lot of prototype cars out there. I saw the new Lotus, I don't know what it's called, the new Lotus like flagship. I think it was in AMG 4-cylinder form, the one I saw, because it didn't sound, I don't know, I couldn't hear too well, but that's it pretty much. We also saw the Gordon Murray car, which was driving in with us, and a few cars that you probably have zero interest in. A couple Hyundais. I saw some new Nissans just testing. at Millbrook. So that was pretty cool. The event altogether was nice. We drove a Superleggera, which was cool. I drove a Superleggera over the mile straight. It's fast, it's rapid, a little bit of turbo lag, and it has a ZF 8-speed gearbox, which is a strange choice. But I assume they've done that because of the torque that the engine creates. I believe it creates 900 and something Newton meters of torque. It is a twin turbocharged V12. So yeah, it wasn't what I was expecting. It did the job, but I would have preferred, you know, the open and close of a clutched gearbox. Other than that, it was pretty cool. We drove the DBX 707, amazing car. I'm not sure if it tickles my fancy entirely. I think I'll need to live with it on like a normal basis instead of doing what I did there, which was drive it around the track. And they don't want you to push the cars really, really hard, and it's frustrating because I like to push cars hard, I like to drive hard. But it was cool. But yeah, we're in Oxford. We just ate at a place called TSE Noodle, and here's another Tommy tip for you. If you want the best noodles in your life, go to TSE Noodles in Oxford. It is amazing. Is it TSE or Say? TSE.
I think it's
TSE. Say.
Say.
Maybe it's Say Noodle. I don't know. But it's amazing. The staff there are amazing. And whenever I go there, I always leave fulfilled. I've never not enjoyed it. We're in a precarious situation now, so I'm going to have to 3-point turn the Aventador, which is something I never like to do. It's probably going to be a 4-point turn. But yeah, going to head back to home now and enjoy some more motorway driving. So yeah.